Okay, I'm going to start over, give this a shot. Queso, part two. Here we have my little piece of queso. It's flying around. It's important to understand camera work. A camera work can make or break a movie. It can make it look good or it can make it look terrible. Flying cheese, not really that great as far as making things look amazing, but we're going to do our best. The first thing I want to do is I want to take a camera and I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to do your typical uh, following the airplane type shot. A lot of times you see cameras underneath the wing or in the cockpit, and I'll show you some examples of those here in a little bit. But a good camera shot that's just going to follow our cheese. If we had two cheeses and we were doing a dog fight, for instance, you would want to maybe show from the perspective of one camera versus, or from the perspective of one airplane versus the perspective of another airplane. So I'm going to pull out a camera, going into Create, Cameras, Camera. With this camera, if I want to look through it, I highlight it. That means that I can keyframe it if I want, but I'm going to highlight it and go Panels, Perspective, Camera 1. Now I'm looking through this camera. While I'm looking through the camera, remember I have the camera selected. I'm going to try to come and position my camera so that it is sitting on top of the cheese. So we're going to pretend that this is going to be a first-person view of the cheese, riding the cheese, and we're just going to set the camera right there. If I hold Shift and select the cheese and hit P, what that does is that parents the camera to the cheese. So wherever the cheese goes, the camera's sure to follow. Now right now, I don't have anything to orient myself to. I don't have the ground, I don't have clouds, I don't have other objects. So as far as you can tell, the only thing that we have is that line, and so it looks like maybe we're riding a roller coaster. That's about the best way I can describe our plane flight right now, is the cheese roller coaster. This is parenting the camera. Let me go back to the panels perspective view, and if you look, you can see that the camera is sitting on top of the cheese, and it's following it around. You select the camera, select the cheese, and hit P, and it parents it. The beauty about having this camera parented, I can come in to the camera. Now the camera is not set on the path. The cheese is set on the path. The camera is just parented to the cheese. So I can take the camera, I can zoom the camera out a little bit, hit S and set a keyframe, and as I'm moving along, let's say right here I want to zoom in on the very tip of the cheese. I can set another keyframe, and not only is the camera going to continue to move along the path, but it's keyframed as well. So eventually it catches up, and now we're riding the cheese through space. Again, without a landscape, without some sort of point of reference, this just looks like we're on a cheese roller coaster. We go upside down, we go side to side. So you may want to do a couple of shots this way, but you can also choose to do other cameras as well. Other cameras that you can do, if I go to Create, Cameras, Camera, and Aim, creates a little camera with a little dot. Now, you can constrain the point to the cheese, or you can parent the point to the cheese. So if I select the little point, Shift and select the cheese, and hit P, now this is a child of the cheese. So that point, wherever the cheese goes, that point follows. Let me move the point so that it's actually sitting on the cheese, and that might help our cause a little bit. So I'm just taking this point and I'm trying my best to just put it on the cheese. I would ask that you would spend at least a day or more working on cameras. When I say a day, I mean just one period, 2 hours. Just working on cameras, because the camera is what tells the story. So you could have the greatest models that you've ever modeled. You could have the best animation that you've ever animated. But if it's not framed well, nobody's going to like it. Okay, so that's with that point parented. Let's look through that camera. That's going to be camera 2. So here we are. We're in the camera's in one stationary position. However, it follows the cheese wherever the cheese goes. And this is really great because we can see those barrel rolls, and it's just a really nice view. You can also set up a camera so that the airplane flies past the camera. So if I go to Create Cameras, Camera, let me look through that camera. I can just set this camera, no keyframes or anything. I can just have this camera set at a certain point so that the cheese flies by the camera, goes out of frame, flies back in front of the camera, and goes out. Lots of different ideas. None of them are wrong, and you may want to do a combination of all three. But that's it. That's simple. That's all we're going to do on the cheese and the cameras today. So let's work on that. Try to get that looking good. When you finish this, you can start rendering your images out. And we are going to use FCheck and Adobe Premiere to create our movies. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and hopefully by the end of the day you will have your cameras worked. If not, let's try to get it done by the end of next class period.